they want to have a sports car like feel in the CHR. But then my question becomes, why not just create a sports car if that's what you want? In this video, I'm going to talk about what's wrong with the car design industry today, how truly out of control the crossover SUV market has become, by analyzing the latest product in a flood of uninspired mass market cookie cutter automotive designs that we've seen a massive increase in the last decade or so. And this time the car just so happens to be a Toyota, but it'll be a Honda or a Mercedes next week. The brand doesn't really matter since it's a disease that's spread throughout the entire automotive industry globally. But it's not all gloom and doom. Stay with me to the end of the video today and I'll show you that there is a light on the horizon, a light that has me excited and inspired for future car designs again, a light created by electricity. So the car I'm going to show you today and give you as an example is the Toyota Corolla Cross. So let's jump in. Alright, so here it is. This is the brand new 2021 Corolla Cross. It's not the Yaris Cross, it's not the RAV4, but you have it's a very hard car to separate from the rest of the SUV lineup, which we're going to have a look at right here. So I'm going to show you exactly my problem with the crossover infections that we have, or mass-produced crossovers that we have in pretty much every single brand today. So let's have a look at, for example, the design here. This looks a lot like a Toyota RAV4. I can't really tell the difference from the side. And then you have these designs right here, these features. I think this is Dacia. This looks exactly like Dacia or Lada maybe. I can't remember. One of those, I'm going to show those up here. These design features, it looks a lot like a modern Lada design feature or graphic that we have, that they just implemented to try and get some identity into the Lada brand. Very interesting that they decided to take that and implement that in the new Corolla Cross here. So let's have a look at the wheelbase here. So the wheelbase for the Corolla Cross, it's 2,640 millimeters, and that is in inches 103.9 inches. So let's keep this in mind when we look at the rest of the lineup here. Show you why I'm confused with the current SUV crossover market. So this is where it gets confusing. Now I'm going to show you the rest of the lineup here. So let's have a look at the Yaris Cross here, for example, up here. If we have a look at the wheelbase here, it's 2,560, and this is the wheelbase, by the way, from axle to axle. You have 2,560 millimeters right here, and in inches that is 100.8 inches. Have a look at the CHR right here. So the CHR compared to the, for example, the Corolla Cross here, it has the exact same wheelbase as the Corolla Cross. So that kind of makes it a little bit interesting. Why would they even produce one of these? Why do they produce both of these when they have the exact same wheelbase? Well, the explanation from Toyota themselves is that they want to have a sports car like feel in the CHR. But then my question becomes, why not just create a sports car if that's what you want? Why does it need to have all this plastic pieces here and this ride height that we have in the CHR? I know why, because people apparently like to sit higher when they drive the CHR, and when they drive pretty much any boring mass-produced cars that people buy today, for some reason they like to sit higher because I guess it feels a little safer. But then don't try to make it into a sports car. Don't try to make it be good at two things. It's gonna be great at nothing. And that's the case with the CHR as well. It's a pretty cool design, I guess. I mean, it looks like the designers had a little fun, at least with this top part right here and this fluid motion that we have going in the CHR. But other than that, calling it a sports car is just wrong, and I don't think that's the right way to go. But hey, as long as it sells, and I'm pretty sure the CHR is selling like crazy these days. And I wish other designs and other packages of cars, I think the reason why it's not selling, why hatchbacks, why sedans and wagons are not selling, is because of the marketing behind it. There's not really a push to sell those kind of cars, but we're gonna see at the end of this video, I want to talk about that light that I was talking about in the beginning and show you that we might actually be heading away from these crossover SUVs and into some more cool designs and funky, fun-looking designs, even in production, not just in concept form. So let's have a look at the, not the Venza, the RAV4 here, for example. Before we jump into the Venza as well, we're not done with the crossover SUVs yet when it comes to the lineup of Toyota. So the RAV4 here, let's have a look at the wheelbase, and that is exactly the same again as the Corolla Cross. So we have a lot of cars here now. We have 3 different cars that has the exact same wheelbase, but they're in the same kind of segment, which is crossover SUVs. So it feels like they're just spitting out these crossover SUVs because they know they're going to sell. But what that does to a brand is dilutes the identity of the brand and also makes it feels cheaper. It feels like they're only doing these models to make a profit. There is no real passion behind these cars. I mean, just imagine, think about this. You're a design director for, let's say, Toyota, and you come into the design team and you tell them, hey, we got a new project. Everybody's excited, and then he says, I know you don't want to hear this, but it's going to be another crossover SUV. I mean, how many iterations of a crossover Toyota SUV can you really make? And we're not done yet here. We're gonna have a look at the Venza here as well. This has, now we're getting into a different wheelbase here, and I have another thing I want to talk to you about the Venza as well here when it comes to the design, which is kind of weird looking. But the Venza, we have 2,690 millimeters here, which is the same as 105.9 inches. So we're growing a little bit, we're getting a little more elegance and maybe some luxury in there. They might want to call this a different segment, even though it's just 2 inches longer in the wheelbase. But for me, the Venza design, I made a video on this on my main channel. The problem I have with the Venza is it definitely looks like it skipped a lot of leg days. Just look at this mass up top, and then we have the tiny wheels here that sits all the way almost too far in here. I want to cut the. If I were to redesign this car, I would cut this overhang in the front, not have it tilt outwards like that. But that's a totally different story. That's not for this video, even though I'm very tempted to redesign that car right now. But it just has some really weird proportions, in my opinion. It looks like it's sitting on stilts or something. It really needs different wheels and different proportions, specifically right here in the front. This mass here just sticks too far out, and it's sticking out the wrong way as well. So it's a weird design. I guess it's supposed to be the elegant version of a RAV4 or something like that. Last but not least, I just want to mention, this is not really in the same category, and that's the Highlander. The Highlander, I totally understand why Toyota would have the Highlander, because it's a proper SUV, more of a luxury SUV. And the wheelbase here, let's just put that out as well. It's 2,850 millimeters, and that is in inches 112.2 inches. So this is a proper SUV, and the proportions look great on the Highlander. But if we just look through the whole lineup here, you could at least eliminate 2 of these designs here. For me, that would be the so-called sports car, which is the CHR, and the Venza. I would delete these 2 and just keep the rest. Or we can even delete one of these as well. We don't need. I want to keep the RAV4 because it's been around for so long. Corolla Cross, I mean, why? Why would you have a Corolla Cross? I know it's going to sell. It's probably going to sell just as much as any other crossover SUV that we have these days. The Yaris Cross, as they call it, they like to just add Cross to the name. I'm sure it's going to be a Camry Cross at some point as well. But the Yaris Cross, I can kind of see it as a funky little off-roader, so I want to keep that as well. But if we look at the entire lineup, I want to bring some more inspired designs into these brands here. And it's not just Toyota that has this problem. It's pretty much every single major car manufacturer today. Honda, we have the Pilot, the Passport, the HRV, the CRV, all a bunch of crossover SUVs. Mercedes, it's not better by any means. They have the GLA, the GLB, the GLC. GLE, GLS, and the electric versions of them. And they also have, on top of that, they have the coupe versions of pretty much every single version of the GL series. The least attractive one is definitely the GLE, which has a face that is disproportionately way too big than the rest of the body of the car. It's such an unattractive design, but still, people buy it, so of course you're gonna make it. But I don't understand why you would pick a GLE coupe over the actually beautiful stance in the rear and the proportions and the mass in the rear, the GLE regular SUV. But hey, whatever sells, they're still gonna keep making it. But let's talk about the future now. I think we're moving away from these type of crossover SUVs. At least I hope so. Because if we look at what cars are coming out now, specifically on an electric platform, we have a lot of exciting news, a lot of crossover SUVs in that area as well, from Volkswagen, for example, Kia EV6, another crossover, whatever, wagon SUV. But on top of that, we have the Honda E, we have the Ioniq 5, which are two proper hatchbacks. So I hope those designs are going to sell. If they sell well, I think it's going to encourage other manufacturers and brands to start making cool hatchbacks as well. Because it makes sense to have a electric hatchback, for example, as a city car, to just have as a daily driver and move away from these crossover SUVs. And we also have the Mercedes EQS, for example, a massive sedan that is fully electric. And BMW doing the same thing with the BMW i4. Looks like a regular sedan, but it's fully electric. So it's a really cool progression of where we're heading now. And they don't necessarily have to have these EV proportions. Some of them really look like a supercar, like the Audi e-tron GT, for example. A great example of what I would love to see a lot more companies do as well. Just bring back the proper sedan, and you can even play around with it more now when you have an electric platform to play around with the proportions to really create a super clean that looks planted on the ground, just like the Audi e-tron. So bringing the concept to production, you can bring the same kind of vibe from the concept into production now without having to talk too much with engineers, who usually ruins the stance and the kind of artistic feel that you get from designers, and then then the product always gets engineered and it gets a lot more dull and bland and boring. But hopefully we're heading in the right direction. So in the future, less crossover SUVs from these companies, and put some marketing behind hatchbacks, wagons, sedans again, and let's make those cool. And let's keep, while we go into this electric era of cars now, let's keep the separation between the segments of cars. Hatchback, I want wagons, I want sedans, and I want SUVs as well. I do still want some crossover SUVs because people need them. They sell like crazy and people obviously like them. But I don't think they should take up 95% of the market. That's just the wrong approach in my opinion. That's it for today's video. I hope you liked it, and if you did, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.